Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sharon Atkinson and I am a metaphysical transformational coach and a master intuitive healer. If you're meeting me for the first time, I just want to explain who I am and what my channel is all about. So I have interacted with the spirit world since I was 7 years old, and I've practiced the law of attraction and deliberate creation for around 2 decades. And then several years ago, I started working with energy and the quantum field, and this was an absolute game changer for me when it came to manifesting and getting tangible results that I wanted to see in my life. So that is what my YouTube channel is all about, bringing mindset work, metaphysics, and manifesting together so that you can do the same in your business, get some tangible outcomes that you actually want to see. And last week, I hosted a masterclass and about how your beliefs create your reality. And this was such a powerful masterclass. I really wanted to break this up and share it on YouTube so that everyone can have access to this information. So that's what this is about. So I am sharing 3 videos over a series with you. And the first part is all about understanding how your beliefs work, and how they naturally manifest your reality, because you're doing this stuff anyway. So we're going to dive into that into this particular video today. And in the second video, that is going to be about how you can identify what your limiting beliefs are and clear them out for yourself. So that's really crucial. And there's a bit of debate about how important beliefs and limiting beliefs are when it comes to manifesting. So I'm going to touch on that. And on the third video, this is the most fun one, is all about how you go about creating supportive beliefs that operate in your subconscious mind on autopilot so that success becomes very effortless and you achieve revenue goals for yourself in this really easy breezy kind of way, which is what we would all love, but we don't really see it pan out. So I'm going to help you do that. I'm going to give you some examples throughout these videos as well. And let's just dive in, because that's how I like to roll. So I have some slides that I'm going to share with you. I am a bit of a nerd, just quietly between me and you. Okay. So manifest your thoughts into reality. Can you do it? Is it possible? Absolutely, it's possible. And you do this sort of stuff all the time. So you're just probably not aware of the extent that you're doing this, which is what I'm going to help you with as well, so that you can avoid certain things. I've already covered that, so I'm not going to go into that again. But so, okay. Let's get stuck into your belief system, because this is already happening. You are already doing this. And once you understand exactly how you're creating limiting beliefs and supporting beliefs in your life, you have a new awareness around all of this stuff. So you can start doing it intentionally. And what I'm going to share with you is part of some of the mindset work I do with my clients. But this is a game changer. You can implement this on your own and you'll get results. Absolutely 100%. You'll start to see changes for yourself. Okay. So I want to put all of this in a bit of context too, because you're probably aware that there's money blocks. People have limiting beliefs about money, and you might be one of them too. And I know I certainly was. When I first started working with limiting beliefs, I thought that I probably had about 3 or 4 limiting beliefs about money. And I did, that was definitely part of the mix. But for business owners and for entrepreneurs, you have entrepreneurial revenue blocks, which are limiting beliefs you create about revenue opportunities in your business and what it takes for you to have this bigger vision that you would ultimately like to see for yourself. And so I want to put this in context so that you can see just how many limiting beliefs you have beyond the typical money blocks that people might have, like trading time for money. That's definitely one. How much you know, deserve to receive higher amounts of money, all that sort of stuff. They're all very common. Everyone has a lot of these money blocks in general. But for entrepreneurs, business owners, and visionaries, there's this whole other category of limiting beliefs that go on. I like to call them revpreneur blocks because they are revenue blocks for entrepreneurs. So when you first started your business, or if you're thinking about starting your business, there's this entrepreneurial dream that we all have, and me included. Like, I'm not, any different to this. And when I first started my own business several years ago, like, this was a big part of why I wanted to do it. So you kind of have this dialogue going on where if you're working for yourself, you're never going to have to work another day in your life, because it's not really work, because you're doing something that you really love. And then if that's the case, if you are doing something that you really love, money is just going to pour in from all these different avenues, just like magic. And then you're going to earn more working for yourself as well, compared to any amount of money you would make working for anyone else. You've got a lot to share. You get a lot more flexibility in your work. You can take time off whenever you want to. You might be like me and create public holidays for yourself as well. That's one of my favorite pastimes. But generally speaking, like, you tick all the strategy boxes. You've got all your accreditation. You've got sales methodology, marketing, training, whatever you need to get up and running. And if you see a gap, you know how to fill it, and you can source resources to help you do that as well. No big deal. And all that needs to happen is, once you get the word out and you start sharing what you do, sharing what you love, people are just going to flock to you, because you are going to be that magnetic, because you have such a unique selling proposition compared to your competition. And before you know it, you are going to be booked out. That's pretty much a lot of inspiration for a lot of business owners comes from this particular mindset. And then if they're all the beliefs that we hold, right, and there was nothing standing in the way, no limiting beliefs in the way of us achieving that and those outcomes that we really wanted to see, what would happen is you would set a goal in your business, set some milestones that you wanted to see, and then your bank balance would naturally grow in line with that. Money would just come in as you expected it to, and you continue and grow and expand and have the impact that you imagine. It'd be fantastic. You would be living the dream, right? But that doesn't happen. I've not met a business owner, and I've worked with a lot of them. I've not met a business owner where it has been this easy to get up and running and live the dream, their dream for how they want to have a successful business. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So you have challenges in business, and some of these are external and some of them are internal, things that you can directly influence and control yourself. So sometimes there's a learning gap. You need to go off and learn something to build up a bit more skill around what you want to do, which is normal. Like, we kind of get that. But in the process of doing this, all these challenges that we face internally, you can start to build up some stories and some perspectives about things, about what's actually possible and achievable for you to do. So internally, I'm not going to read through all of these. You can read through them yourself, but being good to the Google gods and getting good positioning in search results, that's high on the list of priorities for pretty much every single business owner, and something that everyone would like to see happen. You'd love to be first position in Google search results. And sometimes it can be a mystery, like how you do this, how you keep the Google gods happy so that all takes place. And you can start to get a little bit frustrated about when it doesn't happen. You're doing all the things, not working, frustrated. But that applies to everything. All these different elements within your business, you've probably encountered a challenge at some stage. And then you have the external factors as well, out of your control. You have no say in this. You can't learn a new skill. There's nothing that you can really do to bridge any of these gaps. You just kind of have to roll with the punches. And a lot of this can be things like, especially at the moment, the global and local economy, inflation, interest rate rises. Like these are all very real things impacting business owners everywhere. Everyone kind of has to deal with that in some way. So just be mindful of like, I'll probably come back to it, but just keep this particular slide in mind, right? But a lot of that stuff you don't have any control over, especially the external stuff. These things are out of your control, and you've been told like numerous times before, if don't waste your energy on these things that you can't control, just don't bother. And like, I don't know about you, but being told that kind of makes me feel really unsatisfied in some way because I like to influence outcomes. So that's always kind of made me kind of frustrated, a little bit angry if there's something that I can't influence and control. You can start to feel like powerless to do anything about it. You can feel very reactive and have this real sense of this isn't fair. And for some business owners, it can mean that they feel like they can't compete in the market anymore if there's been a significant change. And you might start to find new coaches, new strategies, programs, courses that you can do to try to fix a problem and bridge a gap that you didn't create. And you can build up some resentment around that. Like that's pretty normal stuff. Pretty normal, right? And I know for myself, I definitely have felt all of these things. I'm powerless to do anything about this. There's nothing I can do. And that was very much the case for me in 2020. And I started that year with so much ambition, a lot of hopes and goals for myself for what I wanted to achieve. And going into that year, I'd wrapped up my business as a finance broker and business coach. I'd wrapped that up. And I was so looking forward to starting my business as an energy healer in 2020. And I'd leased a space at a clinic so that I could see clients, my website up and running, had all my social media pages firing, everything's going according to plan. And then Melbourne went into lockdown. And there's a few things that kind of went along with lockdown in Melbourne. If you're not familiar with that, it was basically we had a 5 kilometre travel restriction, meaning we couldn't travel more than 5 kilometres from our house, which is about 2 to 3 miles, I think. And we had a curfew as well, by the way. But for me personally, my business was classified as non-essential, which meant I was unable to see clients face to face. And all of a sudden I was in this situation where I thought, well, great, fantastic. Like now I have this rental expense and no way to see clients to pay the rent. So I'm going to be using my own cash to pay for expenses that, I've agreed to. And I was getting pretty annoyed. And every day it just seemed like there'd be something new, a new announcement that would come along that would push all my buttons and amplify the frustration that I was feeling. And my husband, he has his own business as well. And we didn't know like what the impact of this was going to be on his business and either. And the economists were all saying that, they're comparing this moment in time to the Great Depression. And even though no one really knew like what the outcomes or consequences of lockdown were going to be, short term or long term, or majority of the comparisons made was to the Great Depression. And the business banker in me, very adverse to risk in some ways, was jumping up and down. Like, this is not a recipe for success for any business, especially a startup business. And like, how is this supposed to work? Like, how am I supposed to generate an income and get this business off the ground with all of these restrictions in place? How is this going to work? And I could see, right, in doing this, I was creating a lot of like limiting beliefs. And I'd already been working on my beliefs or clearing them for a few years by this stage. And I could see like just this complete 180 shift in the way I was thinking. And not only that, but I'm creating all of these new stories about what's going to be possible for me to achieve in 2020. And this one phrase kept coming to mind for me, and that is that your beliefs create your reality. Not a new concept, like I knew that this was true, and I had proven this to myself within my own circle of influence and what I can directly control through the people I know, what things I'm involved in. And I knew that that worked. I could clear my beliefs and affect outcomes, like no big deal. But I didn't know if I could apply that same framework to this global situation and experience something different to what everyone else seemed to be going through. And I felt really cheeky and just defiant, like for even thinking about this, that I can go against the grain and I can buck trends just by clearing my beliefs. I felt like I was going to get tapped on the shoulder from the manifesting police or something for even considering it. But then I kind of knew as well that this wasn't coming from a place of this being impossible. This was coming from a place of this is unfamiliar. Like doing this sort of work at this scale was just unfamiliar. And in all honesty, there's nothing to say that I couldn't do it. So I just dove right in and I started applying all of the tools that I already had, which is now part of my abundance mastery system. Started applying all of those and I envisioned, designed, and created all of the outcomes that I wanted to see. And I alchemized myself to become it. I alchemized a path to achieving my goals, just blew up every single obstacle that was in my way. And from a belief perspective, I noticed that like some of the major ones that I had was from being in business banking. I'd really limited what I thought was possible to achieve in terms of revenue from that banker perspective. It was really adverse to risk. And so I had to clear that. And some weeks I would be clearing around 40 different limiting beliefs that I had and all of these stories that went with, went with all of that. And I also had limiting beliefs I had to clear about rent and all the expenses that I had and not being able to generate revenue and this not being fair. So much to clear. But once I started to do that and I focused on the outcomes that I wanted to see, I had things changed, like things turned around, which was amazing, right? So if I just talk about like a couple of them, my landlord in particular, I called her and before I had even mentioned, being in lockdown and the rental agreement, before I even brought it up, she raised that with me and she said, I don't think it's fair that you have to pay rent. We're just going to pause the lease agreement. And once we come back out of lockdown, then we can review it then and we can see what you want to do. And for Melbourne, like we ended up being in lockdown for 7 months of the year. So, and she was impacted as well. So for her to be so generous was such a blessing for me. And I know that not a lot of business owners experience the same thing, but that was my experience. And on the revenue side of things, I had a client from business coaching business approached me out of the blue and he had this idea that he wanted to work with me And could I work with him over the course of the year for 50 grand? And I had no packages, no products, nothing to say that this was an option. He just had it as an idea and ran it past me. And like it was going to work, like I could still get my business up and running and work with him at the same time. So that ended up happening. In the meantime, I got my business online. I stayed in my lane. I organized some drop shipping options as well. And in 2020, I turned over just under 6 figures in a startup business. My husband's business, I worked with him as well. And we took his business from 6 to 7 figures in the world's most locked down city. And I know wholeheartedly that I can clear and rewire anything about myself on the inside. And it is absolutely going to change how I experience the world and what I achieve and and the tangible outcomes that I get for myself, without a doubt. And these thought leaders that have been sharing this information for so many years, I thought, wow, you know what? They're actually right. There are no caveats to this. Our thoughts create our reality. And so this is the mindset strategy. This is the series of videos. This is what I'm basing this on. My experience from 2020, because people are so impacted by the economy at the moment. And this is going to be really valuable. And I'm going to share as many examples as I can so that you can relate it to yourself and make some comparisons and take some bold action and, start steering the ship in a different direction if you're kind of veering off track. That's what we're going to do. So let me go back to here. A bit cold in Melbourne today. Just quietly. Okay. I thought I'd share this with you too. This is some of the quotes that I've been hearing for many, many years from just a couple of people who were manifesting experts, I suppose you could call them, definitely thought leaders of our time. And it doesn't really matter, like whichever perspective you want to take on this, it comes down to your internal reality is mirrored back to you in your external reality. That's it. No caveats, just that. So, how does this work? Like, how are you creating beliefs at the moment to get yourself into a situation, and how do you fix it? Really, really easy to do. So, your beliefs are created in this really, really simple process. You form an opinion about something, you have a judgment about what it means to be something or do something, and you make assumptions about things too. That's the starting off point. From there, you collect a whole bunch of evidence to support that opinion, right? And this is really interesting. The evidence that we collect can be our own experience, which would be ideal. That's not always the case. We often get evidence from other people, can be other people's stories of struggle, like things you see on the news and friends, family, things that they've experienced or that they're currently going through. You can take that on as your own evidence that your thought or your opinion is true. Like, oh my God, I knew this was going to happen. You can also get all of your evidence from anyone with credibility, anyone that you kind of rate in any way, shape, or form, whether that's the news, the economists of 2020, documentaries, parents, doctors, teachers, doesn't matter. Anyone that you think has a valuable opinion and you trust, you're automatically more likely to agree with their perspectives, their forecasts, and take them on board as evidence for assumptions that you have made. And you can even get your evidence from inspirational stories. And these inspirational stories of struggle, right? I really love them. The ones where people have, fought their way back up to the top. I really love them. But I didn't actually realize that in the process of appreciating that someone had hit absolute rock bottom and then clawed their way back up, and because they were so determined and they had so much drive and ambition to get to the top, and that's where they are now. I had no idea that in the process of appreciating those particular stories, I was actually creating that story for myself and using that as evidence. Well, if I want to make it in the world, I've got to hit rock bottom and then I've got to climb my way back up to the top. Not helpful. Okay, so once we collect all of this amazing evidence, we reaffirm our original opinion. I knew that was true. Oh my God. If this happens, then this is what's going to happen. If you find yourself in a similar situation as someone else, this is what is going to happen. If what happened to Bob happens to me, this is what's going to happen. You can always go back to that original assumption that you've made and reaffirm it. And if you know anything about affirmations, which I'm not going to talk about today, you are affirming a pretty lousy assumption if it's negative. And then you end up with a new belief, which is either supportive or is limiting. And for some magical reason, we seem to be conditioned to think very negatively, and we create a lot of limiting beliefs, and we do it all the time. It's not like a once off. Like the majority of limiting beliefs we have are formed in childhood before we're 7 years of age. And that's pretty common knowledge, I think, at this stage. Pretty typical. So we have a very limited view of the world. We don't really understand. We can't put things in perspective because we have no life experience at such a young age. So we make a lot of assumptions about things when we're children because we're learning how to be adults and we're learning what we need to do to survive in the world. So it's probably around, there's different information I see on this, but there's about 80 to 90% of your beliefs are all formed in childhood. So from that place where you have limited life experience, you've made a lot of decisions about things and they're all sitting in your subconscious running on autopilot to make your life easier. So that's how your beliefs are created. And where I like to play is in this section here with the evidence. So when I'm clearing beliefs for clients, yes, I'm clearing beliefs, but I'm also clearing all of the evidence that people have collected over time so that you don't have an emotional reaction to a situation. Because, and why that's important is because when you bring emotion into the thoughts that you're having and you back that up with some sort of evidence, it will land in your subconscious so fast, becomes like concrete. Your thoughts and emotions get kind of bound together and they are very sticky and they will drop into your subconscious and they run on autopilot. And they're the ones that derail, throw you off, they stop and block you from getting the outcomes you want to see, especially in business, especially when you think about, I'll just go back to it a little bit, the business challenges going on. Think about all the different stories you've told yourself about social media algorithms or client acquisition, what you have to do to acquire new clients. And what's that based on? Is that based on your experience or someone else's? And when it comes to things that are outside of your control, like maybe the global economy, what have you decided that that means for you? What sort of evidence have you collected around that? So that is what I would really love to encourage you to think about before we jump into the second video. So, just so exciting. Like, I love this stuff. If you're going to do anything around mindset because you want to make your life easier, then this is such an easy way to do it. And your belief system is going to manifest your reality for you on autopilot. So I really, really, really encourage you to look at that. And in part 2, I'm going to talk about how you can start identifying some of these limiting beliefs that you've already created and how you can start to get rid of them. Because as you start to reflect, you're going to notice that there are a lot of these coming up for you too. So, but you can absolutely have choice. Once you have new awareness, you have a choice. You can change anything you like. You can no longer believe stuff and rewire your way of thinking about something to get different outcomes. And if you love mindset work like this, I have a little present for you too. I'm going to put a link to a free ebook that I have. It's called what is it called? Beyond Conventional Thinking. And this is so cool because a lot of people get stuck because they can't get creative enough to think differently about a situation. So this is what this book will help you do. And there's 3 imagination hacks in there. They're going to help you see more opportunities, look at situations differently, and propel your business forward. So I am going to put that link in the description box for you so you can head over there. Thank you so much for joining me today in this video, and I will see you soon for part 2.